The Silent Witness. The observation deck of the Crimson Nexus stretched across 3 kilometers of reinforced transparisteel, offering an unobstructed view of the binary stars that dominated this sector of space. Their light painted everything in shades of crimson and gold, casting long shadows across the diplomatic chamber below. Commander James Mitchell stood at the edge of that vast window, watching representatives from across the known galaxy prepare for the afternoon session of the Outer Rim Coalition Summit. His reflection stared back at him, a man in his 50s with weathered features and eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. His naval uniform was crisp, adorned with medals from conflicts that most of the assembled species didn't even know had occurred. Behind him, the diplomatic chamber buzzed with anticipation. 43 distinct civilizations occupied the massive hall, each faction seated in specially designed environments that catered to their unique biological needs. The Crystalline Collective occupied climate-controlled chambers where temperatures fluctuated between freezing and boiling. The Zixthar, insectoid beings who communicated through pheromone clouds, occupied an atmosphere-sealed section that reeked of chemical signals no human nose could properly identify. Beside them, the Ethereal Communion, gaseous entities contained within magnetic fields, drifted lazily in their designated zone. And in the center, on raised platforms of gleaming metal, sat the self-proclaimed leaders of this coalition, the Velodian Empire, a spacefaring civilization that had dominated this region for 3,000 years. Commander Mitchell turned from the window and made his way down to the chamber's floor. His 2 assistants, Dr. Sarah Chen and Lieutenant Marcus Webb, followed silently. Chen was humanity's foremost xenolinguist, fluent in 17 alien languages and capable of learning more on the fly. Webb was there for logistics and observation, a career military man with a talent for reading rooms and understanding subtext. They'd been traveling for 8 months to reach this diplomatic summit, and everything humanity had worked toward since first detecting alien signals 15 years ago would be determined in the next 72 hours. The Velodian Chancellor, a towering figure with scales that shimmered like oil on water, gestured toward the human delegation with 2 of his forearms. The newcomers arrived for the evening discourse. How punctual. The way he said the word made it sound like an insult. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled aliens, the sound of different forms of laughter, from the clicking mandibles of the Krell to the harmonic humming of the resonance. Mitchell approached the central podium with steady confidence. He'd trained for this moment his entire career, and more importantly, he'd been authorized to say things that previous human diplomats had only dared whisper in private communications. Chancellor Velodian, honored representatives of the coalition, we appreciate the opportunity to address this assembly. His words were translated in real time through the chamber's neural translation matrix, converting his English into 42 other languages simultaneously. We have come to discuss a matter of critical importance, Mitchell continued, his voice carrying the weight of measured authority, a threat that affects not just Earth but every civilization present in this hall. The Void Collective has expanded its territory by 40% in the past 6 months. Their military doctrine is aggressive and their territorial ambitions know no limit. We have evidence. A representative from the Merchant Fleet Coalition, a squid-like being called Thessar, interrupted with a gesture of dismissal. The Void Collective is a rabble of pirates and scavengers. They have existed in the fringe territories for centuries without threatening major powers. Your concern is premature, human. Our intelligence suggests otherwise, Chen interjected, stepping forward with a data tablet that projected holographic star charts into the center of the chamber. We've monitored their shipyard activity. They're constructing military vessels at a rate 3 times faster than their previous expansion patterns. Their fleet composition has shifted from light patrol craft to heavy battleships. Someone is funding them. The Ethereal Communion representative pulsed with a shade of concerned violet. The humans present data worthy of consideration. However, their civilization has only recently joined the broader galactic community. How can we trust their interpretation of events? Because we've been listening, Mitchell said quietly. For 15 years, we've been silent observers of galactic politics. We've studied your military doctrines, analyzed your diplomatic records, and watched how you handle threats. We've learned, and we're telling you now. The Void Collective is a problem that requires immediate coalition response. The Crystalline Collective representative chimed in, their voice like wind through icicles. The human delegation presumes to teach us security? Our civilization has maintained peace across 12 star systems for millennia. Their world has been consumed by internal conflict for most of its recorded history. We find their warning impertinent. Mitchell's jaw tightened, but his expression remained neutral. This was expected. The older species always dismissed humanity's contributions, seeing them as irrelevant newcomers to a galactic stage where the real players had already established rules and hierarchies. We're not presuming anything. We're offering our perspective as a civilization that has survived by understanding threats before they become catastrophic. We're asking this coalition to act before the Void Collective becomes unstoppable. For the next 3 hours, the debate continued. Other species voiced their concerns. But the dominant powers, the Velodian Empire, the Crystalline Collective, and the Ethereal Communion, consistently minimized the threat that Mitchell and his team presented. The Velodians claimed their own military was more than adequate to handle any incursion. The Crystalline Collective suggested that if the Void Collective became a problem, it could be dealt with through diplomatic channels. The Ethereal Communion simply couldn't be bothered to mobilize resources for what they considered a minor issue. By the time the evening session ended, Mitchell knew they had failed. The coalition would take no action. Humanity's warning would be dismissed as the nervous paranoia of a young species, not yet acclimated to the political complexities of galactic civilization. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Chancellor Velodian approached Mitchell with a gesture that might have been meant as friendly. Do not be discouraged, human. Your people will learn in time that peace is maintained through the established order, not through constant vigilance. The coalition exists precisely to prevent the kind of chaos you fear. Mitchell looked up at the towering alien, seeing the absolute certainty in those oil-slick eyes. With respect, Chancellor, you're not preventing chaos. You're ignoring it. There's a difference. He turned away before the Velodian could respond and walked back toward the observation deck with Chen and Webb. The binary stars were setting now, casting the chamber in twilight. Earth hung somewhere below the horizon of this world, invisible but present in Mitchell's mind. 8 billion people depended on decisions made in rooms like this one. 8 billion people whose future rested on whether older, supposedly wiser civilizations would take humanity's warning seriously. They didn't believe us, Webb said quietly, coming to stand beside Mitchell at the window. No, Mitchell agreed, but that's not really the point anymore. What do you mean? Chen asked, her scientist's mind seeking clarification. Mitchell turned to face them both. In his eyes, they saw something that frightened them. Not anger, but acceptance. I mean, we did everything right. We gave them the evidence. We made the case. We warned them. Now we activate the contingency protocols. Chen's eyes widened. Commander, if we do that, everything changes. There will be no going back. There's already no going back, Mitchell replied. We just didn't know it until today. Send the signal to Earth Command. Authorization code Delta 90. Tell them the coalition has rejected our partnership. Tell them it's time to stop hiding who we really are. Tell them the quiet years are ending. As Mitchell spoke those words, he watched the alien delegates departing the chamber. They walked with the casual confidence of civilizations that believed themselves secure, unaware that they had just made the most catastrophic decision in recent galactic history. Humanity had extended an olive branch. The coalition had not only refused it, they'd mocked the hand that offered it. Mitchell moved to the communication terminal and opened a secure channel back to Earth. His message was brief, encrypted and instantly understood by every military commander in the human fleet. 3 words transmitted across light years. Revelation protocol activated. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, 4,000 human warships powered up their engines. Ships that had been disguised as asteroids, camouflaged as derelict stations, hidden in the radiation shadows of pulsars and black holes, suddenly became visible. Quantum computers calculated firing solutions. AI networks awakened from their dormant states. Humanity stopped pretending to be weak and started revealing what it had always been. A civilization born from conflict, forged through 10,000 years of warfare, and finally, irrevocably, ready to prove to the galaxy that some warnings should never be ignored. The binary stars continued their eternal dance above the crimson nexus, indifferent to the fact that everything was about to change. The breaking point, the distress signals arrived simultaneously at 3 different coalition outposts. each one screaming the same desperate message across subspace channels. The Merchant Fleet Coalition's primary trading hub at Theron Station, the Crystalline Collective's research facility at the Void's Edge Observatory, the Velodian military installation at Fortress Sentinel, all three were under attack. All three were losing. The Void Collective's assault came with no warning, no declaration, no diplomatic prelude. Simply an overwhelming force that emerged from quantum space. Weapons already charging, shields already raised. The defenders of those three installations had expected a manageable threat. Perhaps a few raider ships to be dealt with by standard defensive protocols. Instead, they faced a coordinated military operation that bore all the hallmarks of professional strategic warfare. This wasn't the work of desperate pirates seeking to steal resources. This was the work of something far more organized, far more dangerous. On the bridge of the Crystalline Collective's command vessel, Admiral Quithala shattered into fragments of pure terror as she watched her defenses crumble. 70% of her fleet was destroyed in the first 10 minutes. The massive beam weapons from the Void Collective's capital ship carved through her flagship's shields as if they were made of paper. Alarms screamed across every channel. Over 3,000 of her people, structures, of living crystal bonded by ancient chemistry would be silenced forever in the next few minutes if something didn't intervene. Send emergency distress calls to the Coalition, Quithala commanded, her voice resonating through frequencies that human ears couldn't hear. Contact the Velodian Empire, the Ethereal Communion, anyone. We are under overwhelming attack. The messages went out, traveling at faster than light speeds through carefully maintained relay networks. And then there was nothing to do but watch and wait while her fleet fought a battle they were losing. At the Merchant Fleet Coalition's Theron Station, Administrator Vexco watched the same tragedy unfold from a different perspective. The station had minimal military defenses. It was a trading hub, not a fortress. But now it was being treated like a military target. Void Collective battlecruisers reduced the outer docking rings to slag and fire. Thousands of merchant vessels, representatives from 100 different species, were caught in the crossfire, venting atmosphere spinning out of control, lost to the void. Vexco's 4 eyes tracked the tactical display, watching the red hostile contacts multiply. "Get me a direct line to the Velodian Chancellor," Vexco demanded, his multiple mouths speaking the command in 3 languages simultaneously. "This is an emergency coalition matter. We need military response immediately." But even as the message was being sent, Vexco knew the truth that the Velodians themselves were only just discovering. Help was coming, but not from the expected direction. The human frigate Discovery exited quantum space at precisely calculated coordinates, appearing between the Void Collective's capital ship and the Crystalline Collective's dying fleet. It was a small vessel by Coalition standards, barely 3 kilometers in length. The Void Collective commanders didn't even hesitate. They simply targeted it and fired. What happened next became the first recorded instance of humanity's true military capabilities being revealed to the broader galactic community. The Discovery's defensive systems were unlike anything in Void. Collective databases, energy weapons designed by civilizations that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war, encountered technologies born from 10,000 years of human conflict. Quantum probability engines created moment-to-moment defensive variations that existing targeting systems couldn't calculate. Point defense arrays that drew on computational networks spread across 4 light years, fired with such precision that every incoming projectile was intercepted before it could establish a firing solution. More importantly, the Discovery fired back. Captain Elena Rodriguez, commanding the smallest human warship in the fleet, activated systems that the Coalition hadn't even theorized could exist. Quantum-locked projectiles that maintained perfect aim regardless of the target's evasive maneuvers. Electromagnetic pulse weapons that could disable an enemy ship's systems while leaving the hull intact. Kinetic strike missiles guided by artificial intelligences that could process tactical information faster than biological minds could conceive of strategy. The Void Collective's capital ship, which had been treating this encounter as a minor annoyance, suddenly found itself surrounded by 40 different targeting solutions, each one confirmed by redundant sensor arrays, each one locked with mathematical certainty. It took exactly 90 seconds for Captain Rodriguez to reduce the Void Collective's command vessel to a crippled hulk, drifting without power, without shields, without any capacity to resist. The remaining Void Collective forces, Suddenly faced with military opposition they hadn't anticipated, made a strategic decision. They retreated. Not a tactical withdrawal, but a panicked flight. Their ships pushing their engines to dangerous limits to escape from a single human frigate that had just demonstrated combat capabilities that made the entire coalition military infrastructure look obsolete. Admiral Quithala watched the void, collective retreat through her crystalline sensors. She watched the human ship methodically collect data on her damaged fleet, offering medical and logistical assistance without asking for anything in return. And she understood, with the kind of clarity that only comes from nearly facing extinction, that everything she had believed about the galactic hierarchy had been profoundly, catastrophically wrong. Simultaneously, at Theron Station and Fortress Sentinel, the same pattern repeated. Human ships arrived at the exact moment they were needed, with weapons targeting solutions already calculated, with tactical knowledge that seemed to predict every move the Void Collective would make. The raiders retreated everywhere, leaving behind salvage data and sensor readings that would confuse Coalition analysts for months. Within 4 hours, 3 different human vessels had turned 3 different military disasters into 3 different Coalition victories, not through overwhelming force, but through superior tactical knowledge, better technology, and a level of military coordination that suggested years of preparation. The communications channels exploded with confusion and demands for explanation. The Velodian Chancellor's office wanted to know what authority these human vessels had to engage Coalition military targets. The Crystalline Collective wanted to know what those weapon systems were, and how humanity had developed them. The ethereal communion simply pulsed with confused colors as their diplomatic protocols failed to account for this new reality. And then, precisely 60 seconds after the last Void Collective ship disappeared from Coalition space, every communication channel received a single transmission. It came from Earth. It came from Commander James Mitchell, who was still aboard the Crimson Nexus diplomatic station, watching the chaos unfold across subspace. To all Coalition members, Mitchell's voice was calm, authoritative, carrying the weight of someone who had been waiting for this moment. 3 days ago, I warned this assembly about the threat posed by the Void Collective. My warnings were dismissed as the paranoia of a young civilization. You told us we were not ready to be partners in your coalition. You told us our military capabilities were inadequate. You told us to be patient and learn your established ways. He paused, letting the silence fill with meaning. We were ready. Our military capabilities exceed anything in your current doctrines. And we have been patient. Patient enough to develop technologies and strategies that your finest military minds never conceived possible. We concealed our strength not out of weakness but out of hope that we could join your community peacefully. You have made it clear that peace is not an option you're willing to consider. Therefore, we must introduce you to the reality of human civilization. We are not what we pretended to be. We are what we always have been. Survivors, warriors, and problem solvers. The Void Collective will not trouble this sector again. We will see to it. But understand this. The galactic order you believed was stable has just changed fundamentally. Humanity is no longer a minor player seeking admission to your club. We are a force that will be reckoned with, respected, and most importantly, never again ignored. That is not a threat. That is a promise. Mitchell out. The transmission ended. In the silence that followed, Coalition diplomats and military commanders alike began to realize the magnitude of what had just occurred. 3 military crises had been resolved by a civilization they had dismissed as irrelevant. Advanced weapons systems had been deployed, sophisticated tactical networks had been revealed, and somewhere across human space, there were undoubtedly more capabilities being held in reserve, more secrets yet to be discovered. Chancellor Velodian sat in his private chamber, watching the sensor data from the 3 engagements. He saw the weapon signatures, the tactical maneuvers, the computational speed of the human AI systems, and he understood that humanity had not just revealed its military strength. It had revealed that for 15 years, while pretending to be weak and inexperienced, they had been learning everything about coalition military doctrine, analyzing every strategy, improving every weakness they had observed. The war between worlds had not begun. Instead, something far more permanent had occurred. The established galactic order had shifted. A new power had emerged, and the galaxy would never be quite the same again. In orbit around Earth, the hidden fleet powered down its weapons but kept its shields raised. Humanity was no longer hiding, and the galactic community would have to learn to accept what that meant.